Married couples who sleep in separate rooms, why do you do this? My parents do this. My mom likes to sleep with the TV on. My dad snores and steals sheets. My mother claims sleeping separately saved their marriage. Sounds like me and my husband, except my husband doesn't steal the sheets. He lays on them, and I have to either wake him up or use all my strength to pull the sheets from under him. Or the good old sheet eve with all your night. I'm very familiar with this one. Pro tip, separate comforters. Was just gonna say, my husband and I use our own bed blankets and it's a game changer. My grandma and granddad do. She likes it freezing, and he likes it boiling. Related but not, my grandparents may share a bed, but they do have separate margarine containers. He's a scraper, likes to keep the top of the margarine smooth. She just digs the knife in. They've been married 50-something years, and have had this two-margarine system for as long as I remember. That's the way to solve those stupid problems. Also, for instance, if one always eats the other's food because they are not hungry enough to order their own, just order a small thing for them anyway and take it home if they end up not eating it. This is one of my pet peeves. My wife always does this. When I'm buying takeaway, I'll ask what everyone wants, and she'll inevitably order something small, but then we'll keep taking bites out of my meal. We are not exactly poor, and she grew up upper class. So why does she keep taking my food? I now buy extra, even if she says she doesn't want any, which are simply lies. Girlfriend's parents do this. They both snore, and do it to get away from each other snoring. I didn't think it was that bad, until they talked about having to sleep in the same bed during their trip in Europe. They were at each other's throats, because if one fell asleep, the other couldn't. Had a roommate in a hotel that snored so loud we would drag him sleeping into the bathroom and close the door. He seriously sounded like a snoring cartoon. Snark you. You had me at snark, but the hoo really sells it. Different sleep cycles and work schedules. He wakes up 3 hours before me. I'm a shift worker. She's a teacher. Your house hunter's budget is $1.6 million. Edit, thanks for the prizes. Glad I was able to amuse. I'm a stay-at-home mom and my husband runs a tech startup. It's a dating site for dolphins. Our budget is $2.2 million. I'm a volunteer drama teacher and my wife makes custom paper mache umbrellas and our budget for our first home is a modest $4.5 million. I don't like the smell of paper mache, and for that reason, I'm out. Barbara. During the summer I moved to another room we call the wind tunnel. Basically I have a ceiling fan going almost 24/7 and a window fan above the bed. I run from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. She has allergies and easily gets runny nose and sneezes from any moving air. My body temp will skyrocket and I'll sweat like crazy in a room devoid of moving air. So she sleeps in a stuffy no air movement master bedroom and I sleep soundly in the wind tunnel. During the winter I move back, cause then I become the ultimate body warmer for her. Dude, check out Budget Edit. Fuck, I wish they had a referral program /u/budget lol edit too. YouTube to the hilarious commercial. Does that thing really work? My ex used to call me a storage heater. I'm cold all day in the first half hour of the night, then I give off the heat of 1,000 suns the rest of the night. Yeah man, it's great. FYI, when their site says dual zone, it's because the sheet is split into 2 cells. So with one budget, only half of the bed would get the heat/cooling, leaving the other alone. If you want individualized heat/cooling on each side you need the sheet plus 2 budgets. Unless just one of you wants it as noted above. I'm a single dude with a full-size mattress, so I skip the sheet and just use my blanket to keep the air in and it works fine. My stepmother's parents took this to a new level. He built a second house next door. They lived next to each other for 20 years before they both passed in a short amount of time. It seemed very odd to me, but it worked for them. At least from an outside perspective. I know images never reflect reality. Not exactly the same, but I had a great aunt and uncle who had some kind of huge disagreement early in their marriage and never spoke to each other again, even though they lived together. They slept in different rooms, and he spent most of his time at home in his garden. She took care of the house, cooked his meals, did his laundry, etc. etc. He went to work and paid the bills. At family gatherings the men would hang out with the husband in one room and the women with the wife in another. They remained married that way the rest of their lives. When he died she was apparently utterly devastated. That is really interesting. Yeah, the chance of ever reconciling went out the window. Now that bastard will never give me the apology I deserve. She stood by his grave with a tear on her cheek. Unable to leave, but unable to speak. For now, they were finished, but not in her head. She crouched in the silence. "You bastard," she said. We are both 41, been married 23 years and sleep in different beds. First half of our marriage we always slept in the same bed. Of course there was the occasional crying kid who wanted mommy to sleep with them, or falling asleep on the couch or somewhere else. About 10 years ago I spent a year working a midnight shift, so I started sleep on our spare bed in the basement. We both realized we had much better sleep separate in our own beds. After I went back to a day shift we went back to sleeping in the same bed and soon realized sleeping apart was more restful. Over time we bought 2 full-size beds and put them in our bedroom, like the old TV shows. It's been great edit, so a lot of comments about intimacy. Yeah, we have 6, I'd say every bit as much as we ever did in the past. We've been married over half our life, so we are really good at knowing when fun time is going to happen. Sometimes we sleep in the same bed, there is no rules we have to sleep separately all the time. Our beds are about a foot apart and sometimes we slide them together, especially when the kids were younger, and they'd end up in our room, along with the dog edit too. Yes, we got married at 18. We went to prom together, and girlfriend somehow got pregnant after prom, when we stopped for soda. So we got married. We both realized we had much better sleep as the ultimate answer to this question. I snore and I'm also easily disturbed by movement, so I'm happier in my own bed, and so is my partner. We've settled on separate beds in the same room, which is the sweet spot for us. It's easy to transition from cuddling to sleeping whenever we are ready. Great, this works for you guys. I'm so different. I sleep better when I can feel his body nearby, even if we are not touching. Must be psychological for me, but I have a harder time falling asleep when I go to bed without him, or much earlier. My husband works weekend nights and those 3 nights are the best nights of sleep I get all week. Sleeping together isn't horrible sleep, but it's just not as good. He also gets immense relief sleeping next to me, so I'm fine with my 3 nights. Even on the weekends, I'll lay with him in the morning for an hour, because it just helps him fall asleep. Spouse snores, 2 60-pound dogs, and a queen-size bed. No room for me, and I need dead silence. You want dead silence, and have 2 dogs sleeping on your bed? I'm guessing the dogs are in the other bed. We tried that, but we spoil the pups and they always find their way onto our bed. I sleep on the extra bed, and 1 dog always comes with me too. Works out pretty well. If I even try to sleep on the couch in another room I will wake up to her on top of me. That's funny but sweet as hell. Sweet as hell not related, but this reminds me of the theory that Willy Wonka's chocolate factory was actually a childhood version of Dance Inferno. Edit, this is a theory I just made up, to have something interesting to say, but the more I think of it, it makes sense. Would love to see a remake with a darker, horror type theme maybe. Maybe not. IDK. Interesting theory. I dig it. My parents slept in separate beds as did my great-grandparents. For my great-grandparents it was a comfort thing. Grandma didn't like not being able to move around the bed at will. She and Grandpa loved each other dearly, and she passed not long after he did, because she missed him so much. For my parents it was a couple things. As my dad aged his sleep cycle went weird. He would be able to sleep a couple hours, and then be up half the night, and fall asleep again about the time my mom was getting up for work. Also my mom has sleep apnea, and uses a CPAP. It made hella noise back then. Dad was half deaf and the sound still bothered him. Out of respect for each other they decided it was better to have separate bedrooms. This makes me feel better about my husband and I not sharing a bed. Haha. Some people act like that means your marriage is falling apart. Honestly it helps us love each other more, because I'm not up multiple times a night with his tossing and turning, and he's not up all night listening to my snoring. I feel defensive of it too. My husband gets up earlier, and he hits snooze like 5 times. I'm a very light sleeper and it drives me nuts. So we sleep in separate rooms. My wife has manuscript. One of the primary issues she has is vertigo when I'm in the bed with her. The motion of my breathing / heartbeat / movement really fucks with her vertigo. While she sleeps also, I snore, so an isolated coil mattress wouldn't quite do it. They aren't total isolation either. You feel movement, or 2 beds in 1 room also. Honestly, it spices up the sex life, adds an element of pursuit and some illicit atmosphere to it. We are sneaking around the house to each other's beds to bang. This sounds encouraging. Every story that I have read so far seems really positive in the sleep section, but I was wondering, what happened with the sexy time? It sounds really cool that it spices up things. It definitely takes any of the lazy out of it. We've got to want it. I'd never get laid then. Sometimes I have to sleep on the couch cause I get hypersensitive to sound, especially human sound, and don't like the noise his whole existence makes. He gets it luckily. Misophonia real thing. It bothered me as a kid. But I really notice noises when I came back from overseas. Hypersensitive now. I'm actually surprised misophonia has not ended up being a reason for a percentage of violent crimes and disorders. I don't believe it's even on the newest DSM. I have misophonia. I don't like the sound of people drinking something or pouring liquid into something. I have to walk out of the room if it's happening because it makes my blood boil, not exaggerating. Mouth noises, sometimes people coughing. Electrical currents get me too. All sorts of things. The sound of anyone eating anything crunchy or moist drives me through the roof. There are more, but cereal in particular makes me irate. I know it's wrong, but I have no control over it. Apples. Enough said.